right, good afternoon. Welcome to Shop Talks, function of Impressions Magazine and Impressions the Show, and the Ink Kitchen. Ink Kitchen is an online repository of knowledge in the form of YouTubes and other articles, etc. Michelle's one of the writers here. I'm very, very excited and happy that Michelle Moxley and Dave Gardner are here. Michelle's the innovation director at M&R, and Dave is the art guru, I think it says on his card, for Gildan. And Michelle's going to talk about artificial intelligence. Dave is going to give her a hard time if everything goes well. And we might have to even both gang up on her. And so she can handle it. So take it away, Michelle.
Okay, so Dave and I originally talked about this, and he said that he would be the con and I would be the pro. But as the time that I've spent in AI, I wouldn't say that I'm pro AI. I'm learning. I'm trying to spend as much time as I can.
Let's be fair. I said if I'm allowed to take the humanist standpoint.
Yeah. So my goal changed after that conversation, because then I thought, is there a way that I could get Dave more interested and flip the narrative so he would be the pro and I would. So let's see how that goes.
Okay.
So I did an article for the Ink Kitchen last month called Rubbernecking AI, and it was 30 days learning about AI and spending the time in the space. And what I have to say to our industry, most importantly, is get into that space. However you're getting into it, if it's through the chat, if it's through art, get into that space, learn about it. Learn as much as you can about how it was built and how it thinks and how it's growing, and because it's changing so fast. And it's going to affect us. How is it going to affect us? That's still to be determined, but I have some examples of how it's already affecting my life. So get into it. And I would really like if you guys participate and tell me your stories and what's happening. I used Midjourney. So
I also want to say that one reason we have you here in person is so that AI is not so far that you're a robot that has controlled the Ink Kitchen and put the article up. You're flesh and blood.
And in fact, Rick made the suggestion the next article I could write through the AI, and I tried, and I backed out. I didn't really like it. It was weird. But I ended up using the AI to learn a bunch of other things. When you have it writing for you, it starts to dehumanize really quickly, and it's very hard to connect. And I think with the rubbernecking, it was let me show you what my journey was like, and then when you get into here's an AI explaining it, it starts to get a little bit disconnected and very non-human. The same with the art. The art is very, so I told it to make screen printer making donuts, and yeah, it missed the mark a little. I don't see the screen printer so much, but it's a little bit in there. It's very. The one that I'm using is Midjourney, which I'll show you. It's very illustrative. It's very campy. It does art that is beautiful but recognizable in that space. It's really bad with fingers and ears and tails and things like that. It gives too many.
So, but where we're at now, isn't it just an improv comic? An improv comic.
Yeah, it is.
And it's
right. Okay,
and it's
so
Wayne Brady, not Dave Chappelle.
Well, yeah, right. He's right, because it's taking what is out on the internet and compiling it, and there's this big aspect of it that it's stealing. And it's an early Napster. It's going to get in trouble this year. So getting into the space right now is the opportunity to learn it as it is and see it changing. Every week that I go back on, because I get the full subscription for this, so I get 15 hours a month, and I go back in and something's changing constantly. They're making the user face more friendly and more adaptable, so they're taking away a lot of the hidden kind of codes and things that worked on previous versions. You still have access to all the previous versions, so you can revert it and you can kind of dive into some old YouTube videos. But even the image generation, I remember it was a Wednesday and then it was a Thursday, and I was man, I don't think I would know that was AI. It had an image from your phone of a television with a news reporter giving a news report, and it looked like something I took a picture of in my living room. It looked real. So Midjourney is connected to Discord server, and you have to learn basically how to use it, but you type in imagine, and it gives you a prompt. If you start learning about the AI space, you get to learn how to prompt it. What is it that you want to say? So the first article was AI rubbernecking. Now it's AI whispering. So you got to learn how to talk to it. You got to learn what
Sort of
it
like when we
knows.
first learned how to Google things, right? Something like that.
Absolutely. It's very, like, and it keeps getting related to technologies that changed us, calculators, things like that. But keep in mind, it's also an engine on its own. So it's getting really smart really fast, and you're feeding things into it. So you
This is
can
where
put,
Dave and I talk about the first abacus we got.
I don't know. How old are you guys?
No, but I mean, I think a good parallel would be, photography versus painting, right? For thousands of years, painters were trying to give it a reflection of reality, and when the camera came along, they said, well, what are we going to do now? Well, now you're just going to create really cool stuff that has nothing to do with the real world.
Right.
And so I see an opportunity in this, and I think anytime something new, regardless whether it's technology or not, where everybody moves in this direction, I tend to move the opposite, where I think probably the best place to be is kind of right outside there.
Yeah. So let's see if we can offend Dave. So I read an article about how they said learning this is like learning the guitar.
Yeah, well, my personal opinion.
It sounds like more like learning a pre-programmed Casio.
Yeah,
No.
because if you want to, like, you can find somebody that's doing this and copy their prompt and put it in. And I can't go and, like, be Eddie Van Halen tomorrow because I listened to his music. Like, it's not like learning guitar. But there are aspects of it that you're learning.
When you get into creating a song, I think is where it gets different, right?
Yes.
I think probably anybody here could write a song. They just don't have the technical ability to bring it about. So, that learning process just gives you a way to manifest what you're thinking.
Steven Spielberg was talking about how streaming services are bringing more filmmakers into the space, and it's expanded it to all these creative people that didn't have opportunity before, and that's what this is doing.
And a lot of junk.
It's bringing, yes, a lot of junk, and it's bringing more creative. What you're imagining in your mind is being manifested more quickly. So I had a guy approach me, and he's not here because he works with our vendors, so I don't think he's in screen printing, so I hope not, and I apologize if you are. But he approached me about doing a t-shirt for his wife's 50th birthday, and it's this one. And he said that she's called Little E, and she looks like Elvis, and she wears she has long black hair, and he wanted and he had a picture of Betty Boop, and he had drawn long black hair on her, and she was in the Elvis cape, and he wanted me to illustrate something, and I was like, oh my God. That's like, run away. That's what Michelle does, run away. I don't do that. 5 minutes, this whole thing. It's AI. I just plugged in all the keywords. I imagined in my mind what she might look like, and I said, okay, cartoon character of Elvis impersonator, female, long black hair, kind of rhinestone cape. And it gave me that image. He fell in love with it, like, instantly. And it was 4 generations, but that's because I learned the guitar aspect of it.
Now I'm really, I feel like a fool. When you said AI, I thought we were going to be discussing Adobe Illustrator. I don't feel comfortable up here anymore.
Okay, so the next thing that I've been working on, like, more recently, is there was an Italian clothing manufacturer that developed patterning for sweaters, so they're knitting them, and when visual recognition looks at the person, it sees a giraffe instead of a human. So they have integrated this into this clothing, so they're fooling these visual recognition systems.
I think you need to go over that again.
Okay. So there's an Italian clothing brand, and I didn't see Beppe, I don't know if he's here, but and they did a pattern on a knit sweater, and it's a disruptive pattern, adversarial perturbations. Is that right? And when the visual recognition looks at it, instead of seeing a human being, it sees a giraffe. Like, in the space.
Kind of meta here.
Yeah, okay. So I thought, well, what if we can start building visual recognition disruptions with AI? So you're protecting your privacy, but you're putting out disruptions to all of these cameras that are watching us all over the place and building all of this, so that YOLO and things like that, which are visually seeing us everywhere, that it would disrupt them. So, like, these images right here are...
Sounds more interesting than camouflage.
It is. It is camouflage. It's like, it's a noise camouflage, and it's very, and they said in some aspects it's imperceptible to the human eye. So these images that it generated up here are just disruption images that it wouldn't recognize a human face. Well, that one's really obvious, but like this image was built to not recognize a human face. So I have a visual recognition app, and it doesn't recognize these. So this was kind of the first step into it, to try and discover like how to break this thing using this thing.
Is the NSA going to shut us down?
I don't know. What do you think?
Like, one of the concerns I have is when you put the parameters in, right? If you just let it go without any guardrails, we get some pretty offensive and
Well, okay,
obscure.
so they did put guardrails on these.
The bigger question is who's in charge of the guardrails?
Right. Well, and it was really funny because when I first started and we did the rubbernecking article, I asked like Dark Angel, I think was one of the prompts, and it gave back a nude woman. And then I put the nude woman that it generated back into the prompt, and it said that I was creating offensive content.
No, you weren't. You were.
yeah, right. I'm going to argue with it. I'm sure that'll end well.
No, you did.
Yeah, but you're right. Like, who's creating the guardrails? But that's the bigger question. Like, who's playing the end game? Like, where is this headed? And as it gets more intelligent, because like the chat, the one that's generating text, it's not using your inputs, and it's prior to 2021. But then you can get subscriptions to more current ones. They are using your inputs. So what you're teaching it is learning from. So what is the end game here? And if you integrate it with robotics and things like that.
Is it accelerating homogenation of culture, though? Like, is it, I mean, it's making art from only things that are already there.
Yes.
Like, and then what? Do you make art from the crap that you made from that crap? Like,
Well,
you know what I
it's
mean?
interesting, though, because there are aspects inside of Midjourney where you can stylize it. They call it stylizing. And you can designate to it how much it's supposed to use what it thinks art is in the influence of what it creates. And if you maximize that out, what you get back is alien. It looks out of this world. It doesn't look like something that's very recognizable. So there are parts of it that
In a good way or a bad way?
in a unsettling way. Like, they're not offensive images, but they make you wonder, like, what is this program to think in that space? And in that way, it's starting to generate its own style or its own kind of art. So it is potentially feeding back to us as a culture a new artistic path. And you and I had talked about that before, because it can make artists better.
Yeah, and it's not a binary choice, right? This changes everything. This changes some things,
Yes.
right? You still, it has no effect. You want to build a sculpture, go do that. You want to sit down and draw something, do that. That's from you,
Just don't believe if you see a video online of a sculpture that it's
that
real.
actually
'Cause
exists.
it might not be.
It might not be there.
No.
And it's a little surreal in the like technical way of like surrealists made the exquisite corpse where people would write things and then block it off, and the next person would write only seeing one word, and
Yeah.
like that kind of thing where you generate something random that then it's like, whoa, what the hell is that, right?
Right, and that's what a lot of people are doing.
Except that was from people's unconscious, and this is from the internet and from computers.
Which is a collective consciousness, sort of. Like, we're the ones that fed all this data into it, and that's why it needs the guardrails, because there's a lot of nasty stuff on the internet.
But if the guardrails keep getting steeper and steeper, where does creativity come from? But it's the traditional outside the box.
That's where I have a hard time saying that this is creativity.
Right.
It is a tool. And it can be used like a paintbrush, and you can use it as a tool.
I agree with that.
And it's a more intelligent clip art, and that's where you can definitely integrate it into your businesses quickly. You can find and get to an Elvis impersonation T-shirt a lot faster than scanning through a clip art database and trying to like piece something and Frankenstein it together. It will help you get there, but
So it's really fast at doing bad art.
it's really fast at doing pain in the ass art.
Yeah.
But
That's what I mean.
keep in mind, it doesn't have red tape around it yet. So where you're selling it and what you're using it for, be really like aware, and don't just start putting it out everywhere, because at some point somebody's going to go, wait a minute, this is stealing.
What do you think of attribution? then I've heard people suggest that if you're going to publish something like this, you put whatever engine you used and what your parameters were.
Absolutely. Like I think that it should do that.
Okay.
But
So when you say the lady should look like Elvis should get a penny from it or something, you think?
Elvis don't need no pennies, baby.
oh God.
Everything's gold.
I don't know. I think that we're in this really early stage and we're playing around with it and poking at it. And I'm not selling that. It's for a vendor gift. I don't think that you should sell it.
Yeah.
I really think it's too early, and you're going to find yourself in that situation where you made a bunch of mistakes without realizing that nobody had put those guardrails on. They put the guardrails on for like the bad like imagery, but not really like who owns this and where's it going next.
Kick this can around enough. We should probably get into where it applies to screen printing.
Well, yeah. So that's the thing, though. We used this on the Polaris. So if you go over to the M&R booth, all of the images that are printing right on the Polaris right now are AI generated. They're using an AI to increase the image size to a quality that prints well, and they're using an AI to remove the background. So the workflow would be considered non-human, let's say. So in conversations with some of the brands, one came up today that was about, like, how do I get a digital strategy that looks and feels like my original artwork, things that I'm familiar with that make my brand sell really well. Well, in an analog space, I'm trying to incorporate aspects of screen printing into this digital art that I'm applying through a hybrid or a DTG machine. But in a AI space, maybe I'm feeding all of that IP from that brand into this AI to come up with a scatter program that would make your art look like your previous brand. And now you've integrated your past and your future using an AI with something that maybe is flexible enough.
No more brand guidelines. I like that.
Yeah. Another one is thinking about doing color management on the digital print space. I need something that's flexible enough that will kind of adapt to whoever's using it. If I can integrate an AI into that and say, hey, here's my data set of what is working, can you produce these series of color? And it gets me there closer, but then I can take it to a shop and you can dial it to what your space is. You get there faster. It's starting to catch you up in that digital high-speed DTG print space and let you go faster to your end goal. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now you guys are staring at me.
No. I'm just fascinated. I want to roll back just a touch because, art, I've always assumed that art needed an artist. You can't create a song needed a writer, right?
Agreed.
But what gives it value, right? A Van Gogh is beautiful, but part of it's because of Van Gogh, who was, and as I told you, Andy Warhol can call a soup can a piece of art because he's Andy Warhol. And if you look at clothing designers, people aren't buying that; they're buying the persona of the designer. And I think that's at the end of the day, that's probably where you should focus, right? You're a unique individual with unique life experience. And again, this becomes a tool. And if you lean on it too much, then you're just one of 1,000 people who's leaning on it too much.
Right, that is true. But at the same time, don't avoid it because of those same reasons.
Like, give me a masking program that knows the difference between where the face ends and the hair starts.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. So, like, the background removal was an AI, but it wasn't as good as this. Like, and yeah, this is making campy art, but it's still, like, achieving a quality level that I can print on a press. And the background removal was like, it was pretty hit and miss, and I didn't see it improving. I agree. We need tools that make things faster and make things more integrated that we can build into our workflows. And that's where you have to think creatively about this. Like, how can I use this kind of campy generic art tool that can do all these kind of amazing smart things and integrate it in? And that's where I got into this facial recognition, because I took it one step further and I started thinking, okay, well, if I can get a visual recognition to look at a guy and think it's a giraffe, what if I made it into a lenticular and it was two different animals? And then the thing just brain explodes. Like, that's funny. Come on, it's a joke.
It is.
Yeah. That's where my mind goes, because it's a development into, let's use this weird
I mean,
tool.
that's how you use it, right? I mean, clip art can be the basis of really cool shirts, right?
Right.
I have shirts that were based
Yeah.
on some clip art we found.
Right.
And you can make the worst crap ever
Yeah.
if you pick the wrong clip art and you're an idiot, right?
Yeah. Well, and the original like rubbernecking article was to take an AI generated image and then turn it into a painting and see if it would save me time and give me a good base that I liked what the end result was. And I did, and it worked, and it was like 20 hours instead of 40 hours. But at the end of the story, I don't feel as connected to that piece of art as I do to the things that I create from the ground up. And I don't know if down the road that will change for me. It feels more clip art. It feels a little bit more stylized into like, this was the direction I was going and I envisioned. It got rid of this kind of nightmare job that I don't want to do. Those are all great things, but I lost a little bit of that thread.
I mean, I guess it's like in music, if the difference between a great song that has samples in it and karaoke, right?
Yeah, this
I'll
is a
take
little bit
karaoke
karaoke.
any day of the week.
I know you love karaoke, but this is a little bit karaoke, yeah.
Right? It's
Yeah.
you're taking the backtracks and you're
So-
doing something good or bad with it.
The other example, I think it's announced, right? No?
I don't care. Go ahead.
Oh, so Mike Beckman won Lifetime Achievement Award this year at ISS, and we made a T-shirt of his face using AI-generated images for the Impressions magazine cover. There were a bunch of him with cats, but he got really mad at me, so now it doesn't have cats. And then
This also actually works so that no one else feels bad that they don't win it.
oh yeah, that's true. And then this one is remember Trump came out with his cards, and this is the cards, and it has Mike's face instead of it. So you can have a lot of fun with it. It really is a lot of fun. Get into the space. There's a bunch of different ones. I like Midjourney because it's the most illustrative, but it did take some learning tools. So I used Udemy, and I did a lot of YouTube videos just to learn how to talk to it. That's where the prompting is something that you have to learn. And if you spend time with the chat, you can learn it a little better, although the chat goes to 2021, so I was trying to get it to generate prompts for me for this, but it doesn't know what this is, because it's not old enough. So you can't get prompts that way, but you can steal prompts, and since it's stealing art, that's a place to start.
Wow, what a thievery. All right, so other things you want to say, or should we have questions?
Yeah, let's do questions.
All right.
I want to hear what your guys' experience are, because I'm certainly not an expert. This was
All right.
just to get the conversation.
I got one more thing to add.
Please.
So, my experience has been that I hate saying this at a screen printing show, but the truth is, a good idea that's a bad print and bad art will outsell a really great piece of art that doesn't connect with anybody at 100 to 1, right? And so, at the end of the day, it's all about the idea. When you're putting something on a shirt, how does it resonate with the person at the other end? And for me, it's when I see somebody who's wearing a Harley shirt I did in 1983. It's just like that's what you do it, you know.
I mean, there's no art with no viewer, right? And some would say there's no art with something beyond the artist. That's the collective, whatever you want to call it.
Do you know that they're doing like 3 court cases this month using the AI for traffic tickets? So the lawyer is an AI.
It's probably better than most lawyers.